Good morning, I'm here in beautiful Dubai Creek Harbour and you must be thinking this place is spectacular, and it is. But I wasn't always living right here in this spot in Dubai. When I first moved to Dubai to start my Emirates journey, I was in the random lottery of the Emirates Crew Accommodation. Emirates has a number of different accommodations scattered all over Dubai, and when you first get here, you get randomly assigned to one of those. You can opt out of this if you're already living in Dubai, but for most of us, that isn't an option, and the fully paid for accommodation is one of the benefits of the job. Now, you might be thinking, then why did you leave the Emirates Crew Accommodation? Well, this is because of my relationship, and unfortunately, Emirates do have restrictions in the crew accommodations, and it just made sense for me to move out. So I wanted to make this video to run you through all the details and the rules of the Emirates Crew Accommodation and the other options we have for living in Dubai. I have so many of these questions fall into my DMs every day, and I had these same questions before I started the job. So I hope this video answers a lot of those same questions that you might be having and the ones that you just cannot find the answer to anywhere. So first things first, why did I move out of the Emirates Crew Accommodation? Let's go right back to the beginning when I first passed the interview process with Emirates. I was waiting for my flight tickets to be confirmed, so I knew exactly when I was moving, and this also had my Emirates Crew Accommodation location on it. But not the actual location, just the name of the building, and that's it. And I actually knew a few people who had worked for Emirates previously, so I knew it was a little bit of a luck of the draw about where you get put. Like, genuinely random. There's some crew accommodation that's in the desert, there's some in the city, and there's some in between. And I honestly would have been very happy with an in-between building. So when I first saw the name of the building I was going to be living in, I didn't know exactly what I expected, but it literally was just the name. So I looked it up on Google Maps and I could tell it wasn't near downtown, it wasn't near the Palm, it wasn't really near much, so I didn't really know what to expect. So if any of you came across to YouTube from TikTok, you'll know that I actually began documenting my Emirates journey on there first. And literally one of the biggest videos I ever did, and the second video I ever posted on TikTok, was my Emirates Crew Accommodation tour. And in that video, I didn't think anything was bad. I was so excited. I had this empty room with this big dream of ideas of what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I actually started training and especially flying that I started to hear about other Emirates Crew accommodations. And that's when I realized mine was one of the oldest buildings and one of the furthest away. But still, this was free accommodation with all the bills paid for, so I didn't have to worry about anything. And honestly, when you do apply for the job, knowing that you don't have to sort your accommodation out is one of the best things. And it's just one of the many benefits we get of being cabin crew with the best airline in the world. So I'm gonna run you through even more of the insane benefits we get further along in this video. Now, although the Emirates Crew accommodation I was living in wasn't in the best location, I solved that problem really quickly just by buying a car. And even though the building was quite old, I had some amazing flatmates, and trust me, this is super important because Emirates do not tell you who you're living with, how many people, how old they are, where they're from, nothing. All you know is you're living with at least one or two other people and they're all the same gender as you. I was really happy with the girls that I've been put with. One was from Japan and also in my same training college group, which was really cool because if anything changed with our training, we literally could just ask each other because we were right next to each other's bedrooms. And it was really good for studying because if we needed to double check anything, we could literally just ask each other. The other girl was from Morocco and she'd been flying for 5 years, made it through COVID and everything, which might not sound like a big deal, but for Emirates Cabin Crew, it definitely was. Now, with all this said, I want to get to why I opted out of the Emirates Crew Accommodation, and that is because Zach came into the picture. So let me break it down for you and hopefully you can follow along. With visitors in the Emirates Crew Accommodation, you can't actually have anyone stay overnight unless it's approved with 5 days notice to the security. And this also has to include your flatmates approving it as well. Visitors can stay up to 60 days a year, but only for 30 days each time. So you can spread it out like 5 days here, 5 days there, 10 days here, or do all 30 days at once, but then they have to go away for 5 days and stay somewhere else before they can stay again. Now, all this sounds fine, and I wasn't really concerned about Zach staying more than 60 days a year, but where it gets complicated is if your visitor is a UAE resident. So at the start, it was okay because Zach wasn't a resident, and he ended up staying for like 30 days at the end of 22, and that was while he was actually sorting his residency out. As soon as he got his Emirates ID, which is what you get when you become a resident, he went to check in for our next stay together, and they told him he could only stay for 3 days. That's it. And he'd have to go stay somewhere else for 5 days before he'd come back and do another 3 days. And you can see why that's super awkward, because if I'm flying and he's coming all the way from Bali, we're not going to be able to line up exactly 3 days. And then if he waits for me to come back for another flight, flight? Does he go stay at a hotel for 5 days? How expensive is that? And do I come stay with him at the hotel? Either way, it just wasn't working. The other thing to keep in mind is Zach does work online. So sharing an apartment with 2 other girls while he's trying to work and I'm away, it doesn't work for him, and it's not really fair on them to have someone in their space all the time. As much as they were so kind and happy for him to stay there, I knew it just wasn't fair on them. So that is when I decided to find out about the process of how it works living out of the Emirates crew accommodation. And my biggest question about this whole thing, and I'm sure you're asking the exact same question, is if you move out of the Emirates crew accommodation, does Emirates still pay for it? And how on earth do you get to work? Because if you didn't know, Emirates run crew buses from every crew building in Dubai to HQ. But as you can imagine, not for the crew living out. Another question you might also be asking, which I do get asked a lot, is are you allowed to actually live with your boyfriend in Dubai?
Speaking of living in Dubai, something I also get asked all the time is, do you need to know Arabic to get the job at Emirates? Although this is not a requirement for the job, Emirates always has at least one Arabic-speaking cabin crew member on every single flight. This is because PAs have to be done in both English and Arabic. So maybe learning the language for the company you want to work for or for the country you're going to be living in could give you a huge advantage. This is why I wanted to tell you about Rosetta Stone, a language learning program which teaches you through an immersive experience. So instead of memorizing this long list of translated words, you'll learn through pictures, audio from native speakers, and interactive activities. This helps you learn way faster and actually remember more, as it taps into our brain's natural skills to be able to learn a new language, just like how we learnt our first one. For me though, the most important part to being able to learn a new language is actually finding the time to do it. Rosetta Stone's lessons are as short as 10 minutes and available 100% on the go. So I can take my language learning with me while I travel, and it fits around my busy schedule. Rosetta Stone also have a crazy offer of a single lifetime subscription, meaning you can buy just once at over 60% off and have access to all their lessons and extras forever with no extra cost. And of course, with this lifetime membership, you will always have access to all the newest tools and features that Rosetta Stone brings out, available on both app and desktop. You can find the link in my description box below, so go check it out. And a huge shout out to Rosetta Stone for being the sponsor of my video today, so that we can help you together on your language learning journey. But now let's get back to those Emirates questions you know you want the answers to.
So to answer the first question on whether Emirates pay for you to live out of the Emirates crew accommodation, it's not that simple, and they will not pay straight away and only under certain circumstances. Emirates does offer this thing called a live out allowance. This is a set amount given each month for you to cover the cost of living out of the crew accommodation. And if you are already living in Dubai when you get the job with Emirates, they do actually give you an option whether you want to move into a crew accommodation or get given this allowance. And that's pretty much the easiest way to get it. Everything else is a little bit more complicated. There are 3 things to make you eligible to get the live out allowance. The first thing is to have immediate family living in the UAE and residence. And when I say immediate family, I don't mean aunties, uncles, cousins, or grandparents. It's literally just parents, siblings, or spouse. The second thing is if you're married. And if you were married in another country, you do have to get your marriage certificate recognized in the UAE. The last thing is if you own a property in the UAE. And it's not if your spouse owns it or your family owns it, it's you that has to be written on the title deed. Which, if you're not sure what that is, it's a document here in the UAE that recognizes you as the owner of a property. Now, in saying all of this, you can actually move out of the Emirates crew accommodation and just not get the allowance. But if you didn't know, rent is quite expensive in the UAE, and you do have to cover all your bills and getting to work. So as you can imagine, it all adds up, which is why Emirates provide this allowance in the first place. If you are interested in knowing the full breakdown of the Emirates salary, I did actually make a video of this, and I will pop it in the description below so you guys can check it out after. If you meet those requirements I just told you and you do get the live out allowance, you can actually opt to only get that and not the transport allowance, because a lot of crew living out actually use the buses still, but from a nearby crew building. I definitely understand why crew do this, because it does reduce the risk getting to and from work. Because something you might find interesting, if you don't catch the crew transport and something happens, like you get stuck in traffic on the way to work, it tends to be your fault. Basically, they would say that you should have left earlier and made more time to get to work. But if you're on the crew transport bus and you got there at the right time it would have taken you to get the HQ, they will be a little bit more lenient. But living in Dubai Creek Harbour, I don't have any crew buildings close to where I live. The closest one to me is actually in a suburb called Garhoud, which is right next to Emirates HQ. And if I was to drive there or get a bus there, it would literally take me the same amount of time as it would to get to HQ, and then I would have to catch the crew bus. So it literally did not make any sense for me to do that, so I decided to keep the transport allowance and put it towards me driving or catching a taxi to HQ. Now, on to the next question about whether I can live with my boyfriend in Dubai. Obviously, I can because that's what I'm doing now. And to those that are questioning this, it is honestly not like that anymore in Dubai. People might think it's super strict here, but times are changing. Sure, there are things you technically can't do, like have both your names on the lease or both your names on a bill, because they do only allow spouses to have joint things, but that's also like a lot of other places around the world. So just to clarify, 100% you can live with your partner here in Dubai. That's pretty much the rundown on the accommodation, the transport, and the living situation here in Dubai being Emirates Cabin Crew. Now it's time to get to the other amazing benefits we get as Emirates Cabin Crew. I'll be honest, I might not be able to get through all of them because there's so many, but I will go through the most exciting ones and the ones I personally use the most. Beginning with what I personally think is the number one benefit: staff travel. Now, Emirates is not the only airline to do this. Pretty much every commercial airline provides discounted flights for its staff. And when I say staff, I don't mean just cabin crew. I'm talking baggage handlers, ground staff, and even head office. And one extra thing that you might not realize, this also overlaps with partner airlines. So instead of getting discount tickets just on the airline you work for, you actually get discount tickets on all of the partner airlines they have. Now, I am going to break things down for you. It can get a little complicated, so hopefully you can follow along. There are two types of staff travel tickets that you can get. One is a confirmed ticket and one is a standby ticket. Beginning with the standby, because this is the one most cabin crew use. Basically, this means you're booking on a flight expecting to get on because there'll be spare seats. So if you think about it, this actually means you will not get assigned a seat on the flight until the day of the flight. And not just the day of, like 30 minutes, maybe 45 before the flight, which, as you can imagine, can be absolutely crazy and the most stressful thing in your entire life. But the best case scenario that every staff traveler dreams of is you get to the airport 2 hours before your flight, you check in, and they give you a seat. And this happens when they know that there's so many spare seats that there's no way that they're gonna be able to sell that many before the flight closes. So it means they can clear you for a seat and not have any repercussions. Now, the standby ticket is the cheapest option you can get on staff travel. Usually it's a crazy 90% off the standard ticket price, plus taxes. And as you can imagine, it's only available to staff and their immediate family. So like I mentioned earlier, only parents, sibling, and spouse. This is also the same as the other staff travel ticket option, the confirmed ticket. This ticket is a 50% off the regular price plus taxes and is pretty much the same as a regular ticket that anyone else would buy. But there is still a slight risk. Because it is still a discounted ticket, there is a small chance you might not get on the flight. This will only happen if you ever book a flight that is already overbooked or completely full. What will happen is it means you'll be waitlisted for that flight instead. And that's pretty much like a standby ticket. You're probably thinking then, if you knew that, why didn't you just book the cheaper ticket? Well, basically there's also this other thing with staff travel with seniority. So if you're not the only person staff traveling on that exact same flight, that's when it becomes a priority game based on seniority and ticket type. So if you book that 50% confirmed ticket, but then you got waitlisted, you still have higher priority than anyone on that 90% standby ticket. Even if you had someone who'd been with the company for 10 years and you've been there for 1, but you've booked that more expensive ticket, you get priority. But that is not the same if you were in the same ticket type. So if you've been with the company for 1 year and someone else has been there for 10 and you both booked that standby ticket, basically they get that 1 seat left and you'll be put on the next flight, which could be the next day. When you think about it, it makes sense. If you pay more, you get more priority. And that is where it also comes down to the slight risk. Even if you book that 50% confirmed ticket, if the flight is full with full paying customers, you will get pushed off the flight. That was the exact same in my old airline, and it's pretty much the same at all other airlines. The only thing that might change is the seniority rules. Now, this leads on to my next part of the benefits of staff travel, the partner airlines. There is a website for all cabin crew around the world, and it all works the exact same. Pretty much, you just log in with the details from the airline you work with, and you have access to book all the flights at the partner airlines. So when I worked for Virgin, I had access to airlines like Etihad, Qatar, Singapore, and for Emirates, I have access to airlines like Qantas, Fly Fly Dubai, Air Canada, and so on. Now, for staff travel with partner airlines, we literally only have one ticket type, and that is standby. So in peak seasons like Europe summer and being on smaller aircrafts, things can get a little scary with whether you're actually going to get on these flights. So even if there is a seat left on some of these flights you might be booking, you're also gambling with any other staff travelers that might have more seniority than you. So for me, I have not traveled much with partner airlines just because I'm just not sure I'm going to be able to get on. Emirates, on the other hand, I don't feel so nervous about because people tend to not book flights last minute with Emirates because of how expensive it is, compared to some really cheap airlines in Europe that people might book literally half an hour before the flight. Something else you might also be asking is whether we can book different classes on these flights. Basically, at Virgin, we could book other classes like business class on airlines like Qatar, but sadly, I never got to personally utilize it, which is really disappointing because at Emirates, we cannot. The only people who can book business are first officers and pursers, and the only people who can book first class are captains, and probably people who are higher up and in head office. But as sad as that is, I'm sure there's other airlines that do the exact same thing, and when you think about it, it makes sense. With working for such big airlines that have so many cabin crew, like we're talking 20,000, if you allowed every staff member to be able to book business for them and their immediate family, you would literally have business just full of staff travelers. So as sad as I am that I never got to utilize staff travel for business, I'm sure Zach and I will travel one day in business class ourselves. Something else I get asked all the time, and this is mostly by friends, is can you get cheap tickets for us? And it's not that simple, because if it was, I think everyone would be getting discounted flights through their friends. I used to get it a lot more at Virgin when I had a lot more friends that weren't in the aviation scene or working for an airline themselves. A lot of my friends here are cabin crew at Emirates, so we all get the same staff travel benefits. It's definitely a thing that probably varies the most from airline to airline, because my old airline Virgin had way different rules to what we have here at Emirates. Now at Virgin Australia, they used to have a list of 5 people, whether it was friends or family, and basically you could book an unlimited amount of tickets for all of those, but they had to stay on your staff travel list for 6 months. So you couldn't just book someone a flight, take them off, and book another friend a flight. You could only have 5 people, including your family, that you could actually book these discounted flights for. Virgin, though, also used to have a little bit of an addition to that. Basically, you had 15 tickets per year that you could use for anybody. So it didn't have to be those 5 people, but these tickets were the lowest priority for anyone. So pretty much any other staff traveler will have priority getting a seat over these spare tickets. So I personally never booked any of my friends with them. I had the 5 people on my list. I think it was my brother and a few friends. Anyone else, I would not do it. It is so much more of a hassle if they don't get on, whether it's because of someone else staff traveling who has more priority or the flight gets overbooked or full. I have to rebook them on the next flight. Sure, the staff can help them to a certain point, but in the end, it's my responsibility. And if I'm flying or I'm away, I shouldn't have to be thinking about my friends and whether they got on the flight or not. And they end up just being so distraught about not getting on a flight that you end up feeling so bad you wish you just didn't book them on this discounted ticket anyway. Now, at Emirates, it's a little bit different. I explained to you how it all works with the 2 different ticket types with your immediate family, but we do have a category for friends tickets. It's similar concept, but still quite different. Basically, at the start of every year, you have 37 slots of people you can put on your staff travel for these friends tickets. And once they're on, they have to stay on there the whole year, and you can't add anyone else throughout the year. So you pretty much have to figure out who you're happy to help for the year with friends tickets at the start. These tickets are unlimited for those people that you do put on at the start of the year, but the difference between the other staff travel ticket types that I explained to you, the 50% and the 90%, is you can't just book friends tickets on any flight. Basically, there has to be what I believe to be 100 spare seats at least on a flight to be able to book a friends ticket. And the friends tickets are 100% confirmed, so you can't go standby, which is why I think they give this much of a buffer. They want to make sure if they are providing discounted tickets for extra people that aren't staff, that they can actually be able to sell full price tickets to anyone else first. If they do open them up, they might be literally a day or 2 before the flight. And if you want to risk it and wait to see if they open their flights up, but then they don't, your friend has to book a full fare ticket last minute on Emirates, which can be like 4 to 5 times the regular price. So if that makes sense to you, I personally don't like using the friends tickets. For the times they have worked, I did definitely use some with Zach. They are quite handy, but still you are also the lowest priority if there are any staff travelers ahead of you. If you have a flight attendant friend and next time you're thinking about asking them for a discounted ticket, just remember it's a little bit more complicated than you think, and you cannot blame them if you don't get on the flight. But moving on to the next thing, something I find that is super unique at Emirates is Emirates actually run competitions and provide tax-only tickets. Pretty much that means it's like 100% off the regular price, you just pay the taxes. These are very rare tickets, they pretty much only give them out on competitions, like I think there was a marathon one or exercise month. Even though they're only given away, I still think it's cool that Emirates provides this and has a little bit of a competition for something that's super exciting. It actually reminded me, at Virgin we used to get 1,000 Aussie dollars credit to use on flights every year. Obviously it didn't cost them anything and we only get on these flights if there's spare seats. But I will tell you now, I utilized every single dollar every year because they do not roll over. So it gets to the end of the calendar year and if you haven't used them up, you're just catching a flight somewhere and coming home. I think it was so cool and I got to see a lot of Australia because of that. I don't know if I would have been willing to spend as much money on flights throughout the year at just random days off if I didn't have those credits. Emirates though do actually provide their crew with one fully paid for return flight every year. For the first year though, it is to your home country because they want you to be able to go home and see your family. But after that first year, you can actually book anywhere in the world that Emirates flies to. And the best part about this fully paid for flight, it is just like any normal ticket. So you don't have to worry about whether you're gonna get on the flight or maybe you'll get pushed off. It is 100% confirmed. And this is called our annual leave ticket. So as you can imagine, a lot of crew do use this to go home, especially if you live far away like I do in Australia or US or South America, somewhere that's gonna cost you a lot if you actually book staff travel anyway. So for us, it's really beneficial to use it to go to one of these destinations. Something a lot of crew actually do with this ticket is they use it to book flights to places that they know are gonna be super full, like anywhere in Europe for Europe summer. This is so if they're going on their annual leave, they do not have to worry about whether they're gonna get back on this flight because it can be super stressful. If you only have 5 days off and you have to be back 1 day before your flight, what if you don't get on a standby flight on the way home? Trust me, it's a fear you do not want to unlock. Speaking of annual leave though, one of the benefits at Emirates is we get 30 days paid leave every year. For a full-time job, this is pretty standard. My old airline Virgin actually used to provide us with 6 weeks, which is very cool. The final benefit that I do want to talk about today is all the discounts we get here in Dubai and on things like car hire, hotels, and just travel agencies anywhere in the world. Just like the staff travel website, we have a specific website for discounts and you either book directly through the website or they give you a discount code to use on this third-party website. I personally have used the discounted car hire, especially on some layovers, and it is so handy. I will say you do need to show your staff ID when you are collecting your car hire or when you're checking into the hotel, whatever it is you're getting a discount for, you do have to prove that you work for the airline. So the only thing is if you're booking for friends or family, you do have to make sure you're with them. I get a special crew discount on my car insurance, my phone bill, even free credit cards. Emirates even has its own specific discount card and community card it provides to its crew. These two cards though are subscription based and we do pay for it, but I think they're totally worth it. One of them is specific for restaurants, food, drinks, beach clubs, even activities in Dubai like the water parks. This costs only 30 dirhams a month, and if you do find yourself as a very social person in Dubai, I do think you get your money's worth from it. The other card is slightly cheaper at 27 dirham per month, and this one is more specifically for crew only events. I'm talking like cooking, painting classes, gym access, and even gym classes all around Dubai. I think this is to really encourage crew to meet other crew outside of work, and I even did a few painting and cooking classes myself. So with all these added benefits we get as Emirates Cabin Crew, can you see how this job can be more than just about the money and travel, and it actually becomes a lifestyle? And with Emirates, it's not just any life, it's a life in one of the best cities in the world. So after hearing all this, I would love to know in the comments below, does this make you want to join Emirates? If so, I actually have something super exciting. I made a full step-by-step guide on getting the job as Emirates Cabin Crew. My guide is specifically targeted for the whole process of applying for Emirates, showing you every step of the way from the start to all the way to the golden call. But it is also 100% relevant to getting the job with any other airline, because if you held yourself to the Emirates standards at any cabin crew interview, there's no way you will not stand out in that room compared to everyone else. It even has my exact CV, cover letter, and photos I used on my Emirates application, and templates for yourself. But keep in mind, the application process is just one part of all of this. I also go through how to nail the interview and the assessment day, because this is probably the most important part. I'm so proud of myself for being able to get the job at Emirates, and I want to give the same opportunity opportunity to others. So if this is something you have been thinking about, my guide will help you go through all those tough questions and just make you feel confident in applying for Emirates or any other airline. So I put a link in the description below, go check it out, and maybe this will be the beginning of the next chapter of your life. As always, I appreciate all the love and support I get on this channel. If you haven't subscribed, now's your chance, and feel free to like or comment on this video, and I know I'll be seeing you again very soon.